Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive.
It's good to be here.
So today we're doing what we do best, taking a text that you've asked us to look at and really digging in verse by verse to see what it has to say.
Right, and this isn't just a casual read-through. We're committed to a really detailed exploration. In fact, we should mention, this whole discussion is framed as part of the specialized teaching series developed by the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
That's right. So the goal here is to provide a really complete, thorough understanding. And the text we're tackling today is, well, it's a giant.
It absolutely is. We're going to be in the book of Psalms looking at a single foundational chapter, Psalm 2.
From the King James Version. And its significance is it's enormous. It's one of the great messianic psalms.
Universally recognized as one, yes. It's a powerful prophecy about the coming king.
The Messiah, Jesus Christ. But also does something else right at the beginning of the book of Psalms. It sort of sets the stage for everything that follows.
It does. It immediately establishes this central, this eternal conflict.
Which is what? How would you describe it?
On one hand, you have the unstoppable sovereignty of God, and on the other,
the global raging rebellion of humanity.
Exactly. It creates this incredible dramatic tension right from the first verse. It pits these two competing powers against each other.
So you have the chaotic, almost desperate conspiracy of world leaders.
Their plotting, their political structures, all of it. And then, in stark contrast, the psalm gives us this window into the calm, absolute authority.
And frankly, the terrifying power of God the Father and his enthroned Son.
It's a powerful contrast.
So if the stakes are that high, I mean, we're talking about who actually rules the world, then our mission today has to be more than just defining terms.
I agree. We need to get to the heart of this rebellion.
And understand why the choice that's presented at the end of the psalm, this choice of humble submission to the king, is really the only path to genuine security, to peace, and to blessing.
That's the ultimate goal. So shall we jump in?
Let's do it. Let's start right at the beginning with the opening verses. They express this profound sense of astonishment at what's happening on earth.
The psalmist starts with a question, almost an exclamation.
It's Psalm 2, chapter and verse 1 from the King James Version. It reads, "Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing?"
That first word, why, it just hangs in the air. It sets the tone immediately.
He's bewildered. He's looking out at the world and he can't believe what he's seeing.
And we need to be clear about who he's seeing. The word heathen here, in the Hebrew, it's goyim. It refers to the nations.
Not just a few angry people then.
Oh, no. This is global. It's the political and cultural systems of the entire world, all aligned in opposition.
And that word rage, what does that imply? It sounds so violent.
It is. It's not a passive disagreement. The word suggests this intense turmoil, this agitated, angry, directed opposition. The world is literally churning, mobilizing itself against something.
Okay, so you have this massive, furious global movement, but then the verse pivots.
It does. It asks why they're doing all this when the thing they imagine is a vain thing.
A vain thing. That phrase feels so important. What's the weight behind it?
It carries immense theological weight. The Hebrew there is rik, and it means empty, worthless.
Insubstantial.
Exactly, like a puff of smoke. Theologically, it's often tied to idolatry, the worship of empty, non-existent idols.
So all their most serious plots, all the energy and resources they're pouring into this, from God's perspective, it's completely hollow.
It's guaranteed to fail before it even starts. That's why the psalmist is so astonished. Why strive with such fury against your own creator in an effort that is, by its very nature, worthless?
And that's been the state of fallen humanity since the very beginning, hasn't it? This fight for our own autonomy.
It has. But for the believer, you see, there's immense stability and comfort in this verse.
How so?
Because it tells us that God, who is absolutely sovereign, sees the world's most threatening political movements, the most intimidating cultural shifts.
As an empty effort?
An empty effort. It's going nowhere. It's not that he's just stronger. From his perspective, their opposition is fundamentally a non-issue.
And this opposition isn't just random anger. It's organized. The next verses make that crystal clear.
Oh, absolutely. The leadership is coming from the very top. Let's look at Psalm 2, chapter and verse 2 in the King James Version.
The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed.
See, kings and rulers. These are the most influential figures on the planet. The people with the armies, the money, the power.
And they aren't just reacting, they're deliberately organizing. They set themselves and take counsel together.
It's a strategic meeting. a war council. They have a unified purpose.
And a very clear target.
Very clear. They oppose the Lord. That's Yahweh, God the Father.
And his anointed.
Right. And anointed in Hebrew is Messiah. In Greek, it's Christos.
So this is pointing directly to Jesus.
Ultimately, yes. It confirms that the opposition throughout history, whether it's against King David or the plot against Jesus in Jerusalem or even against the church today, it's all fundamentally aimed at God's chosen eternal king.
So what's driving them? What is the motivation behind all this plotting? Verse 3 gives us their own words. It's like we're hearing a quote from their secret meeting.
It's an open declaration of war. It says, saying, "Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us."
Their bands and their cords, what are these?
This is the very essence of sin, the very heart of the rebellion. The bands and cords are God's moral standards.
His laws, his commandments.
His divine guidance, yes. The rebellious kings and rulers see these things not as loving protection or life-giving wisdom.
That is chains.
Exactly. As restrictive, suffocating chains.
Yeah.
A prison that stops them from doing whatever they want.
So they're chasing after license, not liberty. They want freedom from all boundaries, instead of the true freedom you find within God's good and wise boundaries.
You've hit it right on the head. The unsubmitted human heart wants total autonomy. It wants to be its own God, its own master, free from any authority outside of itself.
And this verse just perfectly captures that desire to reject God's authorities simply because his perfect law feels like a restriction on our own will.
And this isn't just an ancient mindset. This is timeless.
Well, we see it come to life, don't we, in the New Testament? I'm thinking of the book of Acts.
Yes, the apostles, after they heal the lame man, they face this intense persecution.
And in their prayer, what do? They quote this very psalm.
They do. In Acts chapter 4, verses 25 through 28, they apply this text directly to the conspiracy against Jesus.
They name the players.
They do. They say Herod, a king, Pontius Pilate, a ruler, the Gentiles, the heathen, and the people of Israel. They all literally fulfilled this prophecy by ganging up on Jesus.
So this proves that the rebellion in Psalm 2 isn't just some general vague historical trend.
No, it's a specific spiritual pattern of hostility that targets the Messiah and, by extension, all who follow him.
Which gives us a lens to see our own world. When we look at modern cultural shifts, especially movements that seem to reject biblical morality in favor of, absolute personal expression.
It's not just a social trend.
It's this. It's a spiritual effort to cast away the cords of God's loving guidance. The song is giving us the divine blueprint for understanding world history.
And that brings up a really crucial practical application for us, for you listening.
Which is?
We have to constantly examine our own hearts. Do I, personally, view God's commandments as a drag on my happiness?
Do I see them as a restriction or as a framework for my protection and my joy?
Because if we feel constrained, if we feel chafed by his law, then our mindset is actually aligned with the rebellious kings of Psalm 2.
That is a sobering thought.
It is.
Okay, so we've seen the chaos on earth, the plotting, the rage. Now the psalm makes a dramatic shift.
A complete scene change. We go from the frantic, noisy war rooms of earth to the serene, yet absolutely terrifying calm of heaven.
And it happens in a single verse. Psalm 2, chapter and verse 4 from the King James Version. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision.
What a spectacular image. While the kings are running around plotting, setting themselves up, what is God doing?
Sitting.
He's sitting, not pacing, not worried. He's enthroned, sovereign, in absolute calm control.
And his first reaction to all this frantic rebellion is laughter. Now, we have to be careful here. This isn't the laugh of a bully.
No, it's not malicious cruelty. It's the laughter of absolute confidence. The laughter of power so immense that the opposition is seen for what it is.
Which is
ridiculous, utterly absurd. Imagine, as you said earlier, an ant raising its fist to try and punch the sun. That's the scale we're talking about.
So God's power makes humanity's biggest, most serious conspiracy seem absurdly insignificant.
It is. He doesn't need to panic or rush to counter their plans because the outcome is already a settled fact. He laughs because their failure is a foregone conclusion.
The verse adds that he will hold them in derision. That's an even stronger word.
It is. It means he scoffs at them. He mocks their futile efforts, their most frightening threats, the conspiracies that make people on earth tremble. God treats them like a joke.
And this, right here, has to be one of the most comforting verses in the whole Bible for a believer who feels overwhelmed.
Absolutely. When you feel like the political or cultural forces are just too strong, too hostile.
You have to remember this image.
You have to remember that our enemies are God's joke. Our confidence shouldn't come from hoping our side wins a political battle. It has to come from his absolute sovereignty. He is not threatened.
That's a powerful shift in perspective, but it's also a bit jarring to go from divine laughter straight to divine wrath.
It is, but they're connected. The laughter isn't a sign of indifference. It's a sign of the confidence that precedes the judgment.
Because he's totally unthreatened, he can afford to let them plot for a time.
Exactly. But divine patience has a limit. Justice must be served. And that's where verse 5 comes in.
Psalm 02, chapter and verse 5, King James Version. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure.
Then, after the plotting, after the laughter, then comes the response.
And this wrath, it's not a human temper tantrum, is it? It's not God losing control.
Not at all. This is the settled, holy, and just opposition of a perfectly righteous God to persistent, organized rebellion. His holiness demands this response.
It's his sore displeasure, a burning indignation.
And when he finally speaks out of that righteous anger, the effect on the rebels is immediate. It will vex them.
What does that mean, to vex them?
It means to terrify them, to throw them into absolute confusion and turmoil. All their previous arrogance and confidence just evaporates into terror.
And the Bible often shows this wrath as being shared, in a sense, between the Father and the Son.
It does. It's a key theme that points to the final judgment. You can see it so vividly in the book of Revelation.
Right. In Revelation chapter 6, verses 16 and 17, the wicked are crying out for the mountains to fall on them.
And what are they hiding from? They say, hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb.
The Lamb, Jesus.
The Son, the Messiah. He is the agent of the Father's righteous judgment. It's a sobering warning. The only thing more foolish than plotting against God is rejecting the escape he's provided from that very wrath.
And yet, through all the rage, all plotting, and even with this coming wrath, God's ultimate plan remains completely unshaken.
He isn't reacting to their conspiracy.
Yeah.
He's simply acting on his own pre-established sovereign will. This is the pivot point of the whole psalm.
Let's read it. Psalm 02, chapter and verse 6, King James Version. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion.
That one word, yet, it's glorious. It means, in spite of everything you are plotting, despite all your rage, my decree stands.
It's not something he's going to do. He says, I have set my king. Past tense.
It's already done. The event is settled history from God's eternal viewpoint. The king is already established.
And the location, my holy hill of Zion, historically that was David's throne in Jerusalem.
Right. But prophetically, it becomes the symbol for God's sovereign rule over the entire earth, a rule that is ultimately and perfectly fulfilled in Jesus the Messiah.
This is God's unchangeable decree. The world can scheme all at once.
But they are fighting against an accomplished fact. And this is where our confidence must rest. Not in a future hope, but in a past act of God, the enthronement of Christ.
Which the New Testament confirms. Philippians chapter 2, verse 9 says, Wherefore God also hath highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name.
He is already king. The war is, in that sense, already over.
So with the king now established on his throne, the perspective shifts again.
It does. Now, for the first time, the anointed king, the Son, speaks for himself.
And he reveals the eternal basis for his authority. This is where we move from prophecy about him to a direct revelation from him.
He's declaring the legal, eternal covenant made between him and the Father. It's in Psalm 02, chapter and verse 7 from the King James Version.
I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee.
Okay, let's break this down. The king himself is declaring the decree, this unshakable, eternal promise.
And the content of that decree is stunning. Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Now that can sound like it's talking about a birth.
It can, but that's not the primary meaning in this context. This is a royal formula. It's an enthronement declaration.
So this day have I begotten thee isn't about the moment he was created or born.
No, it's about the moment of his public inauguration as king. It's the Father publicly declaring and establishing the Son's unique status, his divine nature, and his ultimate authority. It's the official coronation.
And the New Testament writers seized on this exact verse to prove who Jesus is.
They absolutely did. The writer of Hebrews, in chapter 1, verse 5, uses this quote as his primary evidence that Jesus is infinitely superior to the angels.
Because God never said that to an angel.
He argues that God never said to any angel, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. This verse is the bedrock for Jesus' unique identity as the divine Son of God. His authority is absolute because his identity is divine.
So with that divine status confirmed, the Father then grants the Son his inheritance.
Right, in the very next verse, it's the scope of the decree, Psalm 02, chapter and verse 8, in the King James Version.
Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession.
The dominion is global. The Father promises his Son the entire planet. His inheritance isn't just a small piece of land in the Middle East.
It's all the heathen, all the nations.
And the uttermost parts of the earth. The entire world belongs to the Son by decree. And notice it's given freely. All the Son has to do is ask.
This completely reframes our understanding of something like world missions.
It gives it an incredible certainty, doesn't it?
It's not just a hopeful project we're trying to accomplish.
No. We are participating in God's plan to give the Son the inheritance that has already been promised to him. We are operating within the scope of a divine guarantee. The world can rage, but the king's inheritance is a settled matter.
But for those nations and rulers who refuse to be part of that inheritance, who persist in their rebellion, their fate is described with terrifying clarity.
Yes. Verse 9 shows the other side of the king's reign. Psalm 02, chapter and verse 9, King James Version. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel.
So the king's rule is merciful for those who submit,
but absolutely crushing and devastating for those who remain in opposition. You see both sides of his power. Incredible grace and unyielding severe justice.
The rod of iron. What's the significance of that image? It sounds like absolute power.
It is. A rod of iron is an unyielding scepter. It symbolizes power that is unbreakable, unchangeable, and completely irresistible.
There's no bending it.
There's no negotiation. There's no mercy for the unrepentant rebel. It is raw, final power being used to establish perfect, just order.
And the second image shattering them like a potter's vessel, that speaks volumes about how fragile their power really is.
It does. Think about it. All the combined might of the kings of the earth, their armies, their economies, their influence, when it comes face to face with the king and his iron rod, it's as fragile as a cheap clay pot.
It shatters effortlessly.
And it can't be put back together. This confirms the finality of the judgment. When the king acts, the rebellious powers don't just lose, they cease to exist in any meaningful way.
And this isn't just some Old Testament metaphor that we've moved past. This exact imagery is carried straight into the New Testament's description of Jesus' return.
It's applied directly to Christ. In Revelation chapter 19, verse 15, the vision of the conquering Christ says that he will rule the nations with a rod of iron.
So there's no question that Psalm 2 is talking about Jesus.
None at all. It's about the triumphant Jesus Christ returning to execute judgment and establish his kingdom forever, conquering all rebellion and bringing final justice.
And so for the believer, this violent imagery paradoxically brings comfort.
It really does. It assures us that our King has the absolute irresistible power needed to overcome all evil, every injustice, and to establish a perfect, permanent kingdom. We are on the side of the one figure in the universe whose victory is not up for debate.
Okay, so after that terrifying declaration of the rod of iron, the psalm does one more pivot. It's an act of grace.
It is. The psalmist turns back to the very same kings and rulers who were plotting in verse 2, and he gives them an urgent, gracious invitation.
A way out.
A way to escape the judgment. It's in Psalm 02, chapter and verse 10 from the King James Version. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth.
It's a plea for them to reconsider, isn't it, before the shattering happens?
Yes. He says, be wise and be instructed. Their worldly wisdom led them into a vain thing, into rebellion. True biblical wisdom is recognizing reality.
And the reality is the king's power and his decree.
Exactly. Wisdom is submitting to that reality. He's urging them to abandon their self-deception and face the truth.
And then the psalmist spells out the proper response to this instruction. And it's presented as this beautiful but difficult paradox.
It's verse 11. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling.
Let's unpack that. Serve the Lord with fear. That doesn't mean cowering in terror, does it?
No, not the kind of fear that drives you away from someone. This is reverent awe, a profound, holy respect for God's immeasurable majesty, his holiness, and his irresistible power. You serve him with a clear understanding of who he is.
But then it immediately says to couple that awe with joy. Rejoice with trembling. How can joy and trembling coexist?
That paradox is the reality of our relationship with God. We rejoice because of his incredible grace and salvation. We are blessed beyond measure to even be in his presence.
But the trembling keeps us humble.
The trembling ensures our joy never becomes casual or flippant. We never lose that sense of his utter holiness and our own smallness before him. It keeps us aware of how precious the grace we've received truly is.
It's the same balance we see elsewhere in Scripture. I'm thinking of Paul in Philippians chapter 2, verse 12.
Yes, when he tells the believers to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
It's that same combination.
It's the perfect combination.
Yep.
Diligence and joy mixed with reverent, humble awe. If you lose the fear, you become arrogant. If you lose the joy, you fall into dread. The psalm commands both.
And this reverent, joyful submission leads us to the final, urgent invitation of the psalm. It's deeply symbolic, but also immediately practical.
This is the climax, the final choice. It's in Psalm 2, chapter and verse 12, King James Version.
Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him.
Kiss the Son. Let's start there. What a command.
What did that mean in that culture?
In the ancient Near East, kissing the king was the ultimate symbolic act of homage, of loyalty, of personal submission. It was a total transfer of allegiance.
So it's a command for the rebellious heart to completely abandon its own self-rule and surrender everything to Christ.
Yes, and the warning that follows shows just how urgent this is. Lest he be angry and you perish from the way.
When his wrath is kindled but a little.
That phrase is stunning. God's power is so immense, he doesn't need to unleash his full fury to destroy his enemies.
Just a little bit of
Action.
his anger is enough.
The slightest kindling of his righteous displeasure is sufficient to make the rebels perish from the path of life entirely. The time to submit is now, before even that tiny spark of wrath begins.
The fragile clay pot can't withstand even the smallest tap from the iron rod.
Exactly. It is the ultimate binary choice. But the psalm, wonderfully, does not end on that note of terror.
It pivots one last time to a promise.
A promise of profound blessing. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him.
What does that word blessed really mean here?
It means truly happy, truly secure, to be in a state of ultimate well-being and favor with God. And that security isn't found in political power or military might or personal independence.
It's found only in one place.
Only in completely trusting and relying on the King, the Son, who has already won the victory. Trusting him means finding your refuge under the protection of the iron rod, not standing in opposition to it.
This choice really does echo the foundational message of the New Testament. I'm thinking of John chapter 3, verse 36.
A perfect summary. He that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him.
It's the same choice. Psalm 2 lays the Old Testament foundation for that critical life or death truth.
And that means the core practical application of this entire psalm for every single person listening is singular and unavoidable.
Will you continue in the fruitless, vain rebellion, clinging to your own self-rule?
Or will you humble yourself, kiss the Son, and place your complete trust in Jesus Christ for your eternal life and security?
So we've come on this profound journey through Psalm 2. We started with the chaotic noise of human rebellion, the furious plotting of kings.
And we've ended with the unshakable certainty of God's enthroned King, Jesus Christ.
The song confirms that the Messiah's victory isn't some far-off hope. It is an already assured reality, secured by a divine decree that cannot be broken.
And that assurance has to redirect our focus. Our real security as believers doesn't come from fighting the world's power games with the world's weapons.
Or from winning temporary political victories.
No. True security is found only in our personal daily allegiance to Christ, the King whose throne is immovable and whose authority is absolute over everything.
Let's try to distill this down into 3 key practical takeaways from our analysis of Psalm 2. What's the first one?
First, we have to cultivate a divine perspective. When the world seems overwhelmingly hostile or chaotic, when the kings and rulers seem to be winning,
We have to consciously remember the message of verse 4.
God sits on his throne, and he laughs. He is utterly unthreatened. Letting that perspective govern our response will change how we react to fear and uncertainty.
Okay, that's number 1. What's the second takeaway?
Second, we must examine your bonds. We have to constantly take an inventory of our own hearts and ask, are there areas where I still see God's law or his guidance as restrictive bands and cords?
Am I still trying to be my own master in some corner of my life?
Exactly. And we need to actively pray for a heart that genuinely delights in his boundaries, seeing them as loving protection, not as restrictions on our freedom.
And the third takeaway?
And third, we have to choose submission daily. This psalm makes it clear there is no neutral ground. To not submit is to be in rebellion,
So we're called to an active, continuous submission.
to actively kiss the Son every day. This means consciously abandoning our efforts at self-rule and placing our complete, humble trust in Jesus, knowing that our eternal and our temporal safety is found only in Him.
That really reframes everything. It shifts the main battleground from the world out there to our own hearts.
It does. And that brings me to a final provocative thought to leave you with from this discussion.
Go for it.
If you look elsewhere in the Psalms, like in Psalm 8, chapter and verse 2, it says that God's power is so vast and so counterintuitive that He uses the praise of helpless children, of infants, to establish strength and to silence His enemies.
Using the weakest things to defeat the strongest.
Precisely. So, if God achieves His ultimate crushing victory through such humble and seemingly weak means, how does Psalm 2 challenge you personally to rely less on your own complex strategies, your own political maneuvering, or your own sense of self-sufficiency?
And instead, to place your simple, obedient, humble trust entirely in the King whose rod of iron controls the entire universe.
A profound point to reflect on.
That concludes our detailed teaching discussion of Psalm 02, presented by the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
And to really solidify your understanding of this lesson, be sure to use the flashcards to review the key terms and concepts we've discussed, and then take the quiz. Passing the quiz will mark this lesson as complete.
Until next time, keep seeking wisdom and keep trusting the enthroned King.